you believe you have any responsibility here for what these other families did?
Absolutely not. Our responsibility is to keep families from abusing their children. You know, there are about 1,700 children every year killed by their parents through abuse or neglect. That averages out to 5 a day. Out of every 75 children, our book is in the home of one of those homes.
Violence against children, yes, but you're advocating physical punishment from a very young age. You say if a baby is breastfeeding and it bites the mother, you say to pull the baby's hair.
When a baby bites his mother, she's either going to have to jerk him away, which is kind of a violent act to him, or she's going to have to indicate to him that she's not pleased with that action. So what the grandmothers and mothers do is they'll reach up and grab the baby by the hair and just gently pull. It's not a violent act. Or pull on an ear, or pinch them on the side of the neck, something that indicates that that's unpleasant.
We got a lot of moms in the audience. Does that sound right to you? No.
Hi, y'all, and welcome back. This week in To Train Up a Child by Michael and Debi Pearl, we're going to be looking at guilt and self-loathing. I don't know about y'all, but I can hardly wait.
You talk about having like a plumbing supply line in every room of the house, even in the car. And we brought out an example of it. This is very similar to, in fact, the DA says this is the exact same plumbing supply line that was used in the Lydia Schatz case. How hard would you actually hit? Like what age of a child would you use this on?
Probably about, you wouldn't want to spank one before they're about 2 years old, maybe.
Really? Okay.
Just 2 years old.
2 years old, and that was definitely a hard piece of plastic. I know what plumbing utensil that is, so.
Oh, yeah. I would probably slap someone now if they tried to hit me with that.
Yeah, me too.
Because that would hurt.
It would. And you're saying a 2-year-old. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael Pearl.
Just not under 2. That's taking it too far.
That's a little too far, but 2 and above. I
Yes.
think 2 and above is a little too far, Michael Pearl. I think even your age is a little too far. What if someone came after you with that, trying to spank you for doing wrong? You wouldn't like it.
I mean, unless that's being part of the bedroom and it's been consensual, nobody should be hitting anybody with something like that.
Yes, that's a different story if it's...
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And then in that case, you do you, boo. Whatever you want to do.
You have fun. You do you. As long as it's consensual. Yeah. No, I don't think anyone should be hit with that rod, regardless of whatever their age is.
No. And you know that clip where he when he has him show him that pipe, that was used in a case of a little girl who actually lost her life from her parents.
Okay.
Using what they thought were his methods. He says that's not what he taught them to do. He actually teaches you not to beat your children, and these people misinterpreted his book.
Just trying to cover his own ass right there.
Exactly.
So we know what's in your book, Michael Pearl. We know what's in your book.
Guilt and self-loathing.
It's like, okay, guilt and self-loathing. You're trying to tell them you're going to feel guilty, but we're going to teach you don't feel guilty. There's no guilt needed. I promise.
There's no guilt needed as long as I whip it out of you.
Exactly.
And you don't have to feel bad.
He is trying to train them to train their children, but he's training them to don't feel guilty. I'm teaching you, don't feel guilty. It's okay that you beat your child with this rod 2 and above. It's okay to just don't feel bad. It won't hurt them. You're teaching them.
You're really doing what's best for them in the long run.
Oh, yes. What's best? Seen this episode before, or this conversation he's had, and everyone here see the reaction either from me or Kim or you, and see how we all really feel. Like, I can only imagine what everyone else is feeling right now as they watched it along with us.
And that's what I really wanted to capture. So, like, when people watch this later, it's 100% Jacci had not seen this clip. She did not know what I was fixing to play.
No.
Same as with Kim last week. I pulled it up, the screen was black, and then I sent her the invite. Said, come on in.
Yes, you did.
So what you saw is what you got.
It's very interesting. Very interesting. And I speechless in a way that he would even say that these books that are in these people's homes are the ones that these kids aren't being hurt by their parents and dying. But come to find out also from what we do know that there are more cases of parents that have this book doing this to their children. He's like, oh no, they just read it wrong. They just read it wrong. Yeah.
Took it out of context. When I said to beat your child, I wasn't meaning to beat your child. Jeez. Like, how else are you supposed to take this book?
Right?
Wasn't he even like talking about whipping? I want to say the kid was like 6 months. He was whipping with a willow branch so it would stay away from the stairs.
Yep, he was. That was what, chapter 2, I believe?
Yes. So
Yep.
willow branch is okay for 2 and under. For anyone that was wondering, a good alternative to the plumbing pipe
Is a willow branch from outside. Those are for 2 and under.
I don't know how a person, any adult really, reads or hears somebody say you should use this plumbing plumbing material on your child 2 and older and thinks, I'm going to buy that dude's book. He sounds legit.
I do want to be a parent one day, and I can tell you this, that my child will never be hit with anything.
Well, thank you so much for giving us a little reaction for this video.
No problem.
Can't wait till we get it all together and we can see it tomorrow.
Yeah, right? I can't wait. And I know you'll do amazing, so.
All right, thanks.
We start off this chapter with a refresher course on the story of Adam and Eve. Michael Pearl reminds us that the couple experienced fear and shame, and so they hid themselves from the presence of God. He then goes on to imply that he knows more than both professionals and other parents, because they fail to take into account that children of all ages experience guilt. And as parents, it's your job to address that guilt. He goes on to say, in the extraordinary ignorance of modern child development experts, many entertain the assumption that a child's major problem is not loving himself. Their misdiagnosis comes from a failure to understand the association of the emotion of self-loathing with the supreme motivation of self-love. Michael Pearl doesn't believe anyone needs to be encouraged to love themselves. He believes that comes naturally, and if anything, we need to be trained not to love ourselves too much. He says that self-loathing is just a disappointed self-love. He says another cue of secular wisdom that misguided parents try is to give their children positive affirmations. He said no child can be led from the pit of self-condemnation by heaping empty praise on them. He also says not to use guilt as a weapon, which I will agree with because that's manipulation. He says a soul that feels guilty is a soul that will continue to do wrong. He says the feeling of anguish of failure and the dreaded anticipation of it lowers one's expectations of self. Unresolved guilt lowers self-esteem to the point where one does not expect to do anything other than fail. The next topic in this chapter that he touches on is probably the worst thing in this book I've read so far, and I know I've probably said that before, but this one is really, really bad. He mentions self-abuse and self-harm and how only guilty souls would feel the need to do that to themselves. He said it's guilt that has not been resolved. And I don't feel comfortable with the subject of discussing this, especially from Michael Pearl's twisted point of view. So we're going to go ahead and skip forward to the rest of the chapter. And this is where he teaches you how to release the guilt. And how does one release guilt? Well, you've guessed it. You release the guilt by punishing the child. Since children, until they have full accountability of their actions, it's up to the parents to make sure that you relieve their guilt. It says mature teens and adults can find release from their guilt through the Savior who suffered the curse of their sins, but little children cannot. So Michael Pearl explains that you as the parent have the power of absolution for your child. You have the power to release your child's guilt. You have complete control in that. A child properly and timely spanked is healed in the soul and restored to wholeness of spirit. According to the scriptures, a child can be turned back from the road to hell through proper spankings. He says that a properly administered spanking is restorative as nothing else can be, and that it's a comforting rod. Do you want to comfort your child with the rod? If you had not seen the rod of comfort, you have missed its purpose. An unchastened child is not only restless and irritable in his spirits, but he causes the whole house to be in turmoil. And Michael Pearl reiterates that when he says properly chastised, he is again affirming that physical chastisement is indispensable in early training, but it reaps positive results only when administered by a wise parent in a thoughtful, gracious manner with deliberation. And to wrap the chapter off, he gives one more pearl of wisdom. He says it's time to put timeouts in timeout. According to him, timeouts only provide fertile ground for the incubation of guilt and self-loathing in the heart of children. Thanks for joining me for Chapter 6. See you next week for Chapter 7. Bye, y'all. If you or someone you know has been a victim of domestic violence, you can contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. You can also text START to 1-800-799-SAFE, or you can chat live with them at thehotline.org.